October 1962. For 13 days, the world stood on the edge of nuclear annihilation, and most people had no idea how close we came. This is the story of the Cuban Missile Crisis, the moment the United States and the Soviet Union nearly triggered World War III. It began not with an explosion, but with a photograph taken high above the clouds. On October 14th, an American U-2 spy plane captured images that would change history. Hidden among palm trees and farmland were Soviet nuclear missile installations, just 90 miles from Florida. 90 miles is nothing for a nuclear weapon. It's minutes. When President John F. Kennedy saw the images, he understood immediately. The balance of power had shifted overnight. Soviet missiles in Cuba meant Washington, New York, even Chicago could be struck with almost no warning. And in Moscow, Nikita Khrushchev believed he was correcting a dangerous imbalance. The United States had already placed nuclear missiles in Turkey within striking distance of the Soviet Union. To Khrushchev, Cuba was leverage, a way to even the score. To Kennedy, it was an unacceptable threat on America's doorstep. The question was no longer whether this was dangerous. The question was how to respond. Airstrikes could destroy the missiles, but they could also trigger immediate nuclear retaliation. A full invasion of Cuba was possible, but it risked war with the Soviet Union. So Kennedy chose a third path, a naval blockade around Cuba. Officially, it was called a quarantine. The word blockade sounded too much like war. On October 22nd, Kennedy addressed the nation on live television. Millions watched as he revealed the presence of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba. Around the world, people began to prepare for the unthinkable. School children practiced duck and cover drills, hiding beneath wooden desks. Strategic Air Command placed nuclear bombers on constant alert. In the Atlantic, Soviet ships steamed toward the American naval line. The world held its breath as the distance between the two superpowers shrank mile by mile. Then, something unexpected happened. Some Soviet ships slowed and turned back. But the crisis was far from over. The missiles in Cuba were still being assembled.
And beneath the ocean's surface, a single decision nearly ended everything. An American destroyer dropped practice depth charges to force a Soviet submarine to surface. Inside the submarine, the crew believed nuclear war might have already begun. The captain prepared to launch a nuclear torpedo. It would have detonated with the force of Hiroshima. But one man refused to agree.
His name was Vasily Arkhipov, and his vote stopped the launch. One quiet act of restraint may have saved millions of lives. Back on land, secret letters moved between Washington and Moscow. Publicly, both leaders projected strength. Privately, they searched for a way out. Finally, a deal was struck. The Soviet Union would remove its missiles from Cuba. In return, the United States secretly agreed to remove its missiles from Turkey. The world stepped back from the brink. No missiles were fired, no cities were destroyed. But the lesson was unforgettable. For 13 days, human pride, fear, and miscalculation nearly erased civilization. And in the end, survival depended not on weapons, but on restraint.